Alright, welcome back. In this second tutorial, I'll be going over the different tools provided and how you can create levels using them. This second tutorial is going to be a little bit more improvised than the first one, but it's going to be great. Don't worry about it. Once again, I'll have all relevant links in the description. Alright, we're going to start off. So last time, I showed you how to place some tiles. We placed them on the middle ground 8 layer. So I'm going to start off by explaining what these different layers are. Firstly, there are the middle ground 8 and middle ground 16 layers. These are the foreground tiles that you stand on, and they make up the most important part of the level. This also includes death pits. So any of those pits that you fall into and die when you hit the bottom, those are a special tile that goes on these layers. And something worth noting, if you want to get a look at a layer better, you can disable viewing of other layers by just clicking this eye. So right now I can't see the 8th layer, so now I got a better look of the 16-bit layer. So here are these death pits, and you can see the green squares are the actual area where you get killed. Next up are the background 8 and it's not shown here, but background 16 layers, and those are used for tiles that appear in the background. So similar setup to foreground or middle ground 8 and middle ground 16, just decorative tiles in the background for decoration. In the template, this isn't used at all, but I will add some tiles in the background for the purposes of this tutorial. Also, you might notice that the background 16 layer is missing in the template, but it's possible to add that yourself if you need them, and I'll go over those later too, the adding process, that is. Alright, next up is GPI 8, GPI 16, and GPI 8 and 16. So what those mean are I'm not actually sure what GPI stands for, but this is like anything that appears in the level that isn't a tile and isn't decoration. So that's like the lanterns, the rings, time shards, the enemies, and probably some other stuff too. Like I think moving platforms, those go under GPI. 8 is for 8-bit, 16 is for 16-bit, 8 and 16 is for stuff that appears on both in both times, which is most things. So that's why everything here only gets highlighted when I select 8 and 16. I don't use the 8 and 16 by themselves at all in the template level. After the GPI, we have the portals layer, and the portals layer is obviously for portals. So here I've got a circular portal. If you had one of those line portals, you'd also put it in this layer. And yeah, that's all that's for. Pretty self-explanatory. And the camera layer is a very important one because it defines the room boundaries. So this red line, this blue line, these are all things that appear on the camera layer. I'm going to turn that back on just so I don't forget later. So you use the camera layer to define the bounds of the camera and the bounds of the levels. So that's important. Like with background 16, there are also some other layers that I've left out of this template but are included in the base game. One of these is props 8, props 16, and props 8 and 16 in a similar way to how GPI is. And this layer is used for objects that are placed in the background but that aren't in tiles exactly. They're just like plants, I believe the houses in the Ninja Village, stuff like that, where it's in the background, it's there, but it's not a tile. There's also overlay art 8 and overlay art 16. Those two are for things that are in the foreground but not collidable, so they're overlays, obviously. And so that would be stuff like the rocky outcroppings that are in front of the player that appear in a lot of levels in 16-bit. Or, yeah, just anything in the foreground that isn't collidable, basically. Alright, and that covers all the different layers you can use to put tiles on. So I'm going to go over using these layers to make a couple of things. I'm going to start out by adding a new room. So if I click on the camera layer and zoom out of it, you can see that there's, unlike these other layers, which have all sorts of little squares in here for each tile, the camera layer doesn't seem to have that, but what you're actually seeing is there are two big tiles, each the size of a room. All of the rooms are a multiple of 32 by 16 tiles. So that's 32 wide and 16 tall. And there's some multiple of that. So the way I have it set up in the template, I only made the grid size 1 row by 2 columns. So the only rooms you can put in here are these. If we want to change that, we're going to add, let's say, let's make a room that's extra wide to the right. So I'm going to expand this a little, and we're going to be 4 columns wide now. And just hit rebuild, and you'll see 2 more spaces here for rooms. Now this hasn't created the room just yet. Now we need to add the actual tiles in there. And so we're going to go into tools, we're going to click the brush tool, we're going to go into brushes, and we're going to want to find cam collision up and down. I already have it selected, but if you're having trouble finding it, keep in mind there's a search bar and you can just search cam to get all the different camera things. Up and down is what we want, because that'll be one on the top and one on the bottom. And we're going to put one right here, and you'll see, bam, red lines on the top, red line on the bottom. Next, we're going to want to find one for the end here, and what we're looking for is like a U shape with top, right, and bottom, all solid. So we're going to search, and it's cam collision U right is the U shape. And another problem. So if you take a look at this one, there is a border in between here. And this is not blue like this one, so we can't go through it. So there's a couple things you can do here. One, you could create something like this cam all around right transition and use that to but modify it so there wasn't a border on the left, and then you'd be able to place stuff for this easily. But another thing, an easy thing we can do, is we can go into here, we can find it, and this one is called, let's see, what gets selected. So if I select cam collision, all around 1, this one specifically, you'll see there's a circle appearing in the middle. We're going to go into that, and we're just going to delete the right. Actually, no, we're not going to delete the right one, because we want it to be a room transition, not just making the room bigger. If we were to delete this, it would just be one long room combined with this existing room. So we're just going to click here, and we're going to click trigger screen change, and that's just going to turn it blue, and now we have a whole new room here. Now we want to fill in our room. So we're done working with the camera, and we're going to start with some tiles. Let's start with 8-bit. I'm going to go into tile map and middle ground, and you'll notice that once again the grid here doesn't extend into the rooms we want, and that's again because I only set it to be the number of rooms we needed. So we're adding 2 more rooms. Each room is 32 tiles wide, so we're going to add 64 onto this for a total of 128. Rebuild that, and you'll see expanded, and we'll have to do this for each layer when we get to it, so keep that in mind. And then we're going to go, well, we're not doing camera stuff anymore, so we're going to go and we're going to search template, And we're going to use the 8-bit tile set I made, and you can use tools got unselected, but you can use 16-bit in 8-bit, and this will actually show up in 8-bit just fine, but we don't want to do that. So erase with right click and just remove these. Note that the undo button does not work for this. It'll do something else. It's just not, I don't know. It just doesn't work right for tile drawing specifically. The undo button will work fine for most Unity things, but not this. So we're going to expand this. We're going to add, we're going to like a jump here. We're going to have, let's put a rope dart hook there to have you fly into this platform. And then, well, I guess we'll put an enemy on here. And then we jump up. We'll put a lantern here. And we'll jump up onto this ledge here. And that's going to be, that's the outline of a room. So now we're going to want to fill in this room with the stuff I just talked about. So first of all, we're going to want to find some enemies. And anything ending in spawner is an enemy. So actually, sorry, not anything, because some of these are portals, and we don't want to add a portal. Oh, an important thing to note, before we go on to enemies, we want to be in GPI 8 and 16. And you'll notice once again, the grid doesn't extend, so we'll need to extend this out to 128. And you can build this way bigger. It doesn't need to fit the number of rooms you have. In fact, I'll demonstrate right now. Let's just make this, double it, 256. This is fine. This will not make an extra large room. That, as long as the camera boundary is here, it doesn't matter how large your grid is. So you feel free to expand in advance to whatever you need. So let's get an enemy down. We're going to place one on this middle platform. Let's just do one of the green turtles. And it doesn't show up, but you'll see like a little hitbox outline from where it'll spawn. And that's where it's going to appear. And let's also have this guy here. This is one of the shooty guys that drops the blue projectiles. And so now, staying on GPI 8 and 16, we're going to want to add our lantern. So Bamboo Creek lantern, take that, drop it right there, right in between, and that's good. Let's add one here just for flavor. Beautiful. And okay, there's no, is there? No. So there's no, so now we need to figure out where the rope dart hook is, because I don't actually remember where it is. So, and that's called a grapploo target. So we need to find there it is, grapploo target. And grapploo is just the internal name used for the rope dart. I assume it's something French, maybe like grapple. So we're just going to stick that right there. And we'll see how this goes. So we got 2 enemies, we got some lanterns, and we've got a rope dart. And this is just a very basic level. So we're going to go through the same process detailed in the first video of saving it, building the level, and exporting it. And I'll just do that and get back to you when we're ready. Alright, something I just realized we forgot to do. There's an invisible wall to the right here. This will stop us from reaching the new parts of our level. So, a couple things I can do. I can just delete it, which will allow me to walk off this edge, which is not what we want. And another thing I can do is I can grab this move tool and I can shift it over here, and we're going to go and make sure these coordinates line up nice and neat. We're changing that to an even 128. Actually, we're going to want that to be 129, so 128.5, so it just barely hits the edge, and then an even -8. And you'll see that lines up nice and neatly. Another thing I've forgotten to do is add death pits on the bottom. However, I'm just going to leave that out and then show you what that results in. Now it should be all ready to view, and we're going to see how it looks in game. Alright, jumping into the game, we're just going to breeze through the level to get to the parts we added. We're going to want to make sure we stay in 8-bit since that's the only tiles we added. If we go into 16-bit, the room will just be empty and we'll fall through a pit of despair. And so here's our room, works fine, looks good, got our lanterns, got our grappling, or our rope dart hook, got our enemies, everything working as intended. Except for one issue. Some people might notice this, some people might not. But you'll notice at the bottom of the screen, there isn't that gradient pattern with the diagonal pixels that you see at every bottomless pit in the game. And what that means is that the pit does not kill you. I will now fall forever. This is very sad. We're going to fix this next. Alright, now we're going to need to make a couple of changes to our existing level. First, we're going to want to fill in that death pit we are missing. And the reason the death pit doesn't work is because we don't have any of the pit tiles. So we're going to make sure we're in middle ground, switch to the brush, go into brushes, we're going to go to shared because that's where the pits are, and we're going to grab deep pit and just draw that right along the bottom and over here 2 and pit 1, and we're just going to do it like this. Beautiful. So these have collision on them, which makes it so that these have collision that makes it so the player dies when they hit it. And that we have some examples of the 16-bit version over here, which is under shared 16. So that'll stop the players from falling out of bounds, so that's good. I just had to go through and fix something, which is what these green squares are here for now. The green squares are good. You should have them on your end without any extra work. Moving on. So now that we've got the pit working, we're not going to go in game and test that right now. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a 16-bit version of this level, this screen specifically, going backwards. Step 1, we're going to grab a portal. We're going to go into, and this is on the portals layer. We're going to be in, just going to go back to brushes, search portal, dimension, portal spawner, and again, the tile map is too small to fit all this, so we're going to need to expand it. And conveniently, it's already opened up on the side here. Going to move this out to 128. Hit rebuild, easy. And we're going to stick the portal right there. Fantastic. Now, we're going to want to go and, I believe, yep, grab our 16-bit template tile set. And we're going to hide the 8-bit one so we don't get confused. Bam. Now we are going to, this is here, right? Why aren't the lines showing up? Okay, the lines aren't showing up because I selected the 8-bit tile set right after disabling it. Alright, so this one's too small. We're going to need to expand it as well. And so going back, we're going to see where our tiles, they're right there. So we're going to do something very similar, but slightly different. So it's going to look just like this. And then for this one, we're going to have the player just cloud step off of these two to get to where it needs to be. And where was our enemy that we added? So there's an enemy might be still standing right there, so we're gonna need to make sure we have tiles right here. Yeah, that looks good. And then from there, we're gonna have a little outcropping there. Let's do one of these, just because I say so. And just to make it clear that it's a different thing. And then, once again, going to turn that on quickly to see where we're at. So we're going to have the player hit this, and go. Hiding that. Actually, no, I'm going to show that. So fantastic. So this is a slightly different level going backwards. And another thing we need to add are the death pits for 16-bit, because those act separately. So you can either not have them on one version if it has solid tiles there instead, or you can do what we're doing and have them on both versions, but slightly different places. And for this specifically, you might want to use the line tool just to draw a straight line. That way, if you accidentally move your mouse somewhere else, it won't draw until you're ready to do it. So there we go. We got death pits, we got a different path going backwards. Fantastic. And now, I think once you re-enable that, I think we're ready to see how that looks in game. This is just very simple level. So let's open up the game and see where we're at. Alright, so as you can see, first of all, our death pit is here, and I'll try that out in a couple seconds. But let's check out our transition to 16-bit. Oh, there we go. So 16-bit works great. Everything's the same. Lanterns are here. Amazing. And you can see this is here when it wasn't here before. Everything's different. Oh, and so now we're testing out our death pits. Definitely intentional. As you can see, the death pits work. And you'll see I get set back into 8-bit here, since that's where I'm saved at. So obviously, all of our changes work. Now there's only a couple more things we need to do before we're done. Those being basically just decoration and how to add a new layer to put your tiles on. We're going to do that by putting a tile on the prop 16 layer, which, as you may know, does not exist in the template. So we're going to see how that works. To add a new tile system to our layer, we're going to want to go down here, click on Create Tile System, and a window is going to pop up somewhere. There it is. And we're going to click Create Tile System, and we're going to, first off, 2D. Second off, our tile system is called Props 16, because that's what we want it to be. And then we're going to take a look at one of the other tile systems for guidance. We're going to check out GPI 16, and we're going to see that has 16 rows and 64 columns, and the chunk size is 100 by 100. We're not going to touch that because that isn't super important. Cell size 1 by 1 by 1. Tile spacing sideways. Initial direction not listed here, but forwards is fine. And that should be it. So we're going to hit create, and it's going to create a new object in the scene, and we're going to want to take this prop 16 and we're going to want to put it in here. Now there's one more thing we should add. Actually, we're going to put it at the bottom of here, and this isn't super important, but sticking with the way the base game does it is a good idea. So next we're going to want to add this tile system info to make sure that certain scripts know what sort of a tile system it is. So we're going to head to tile system info. We're going to go to dimension, bit 16, and we're going to find tile set props 16, which is what we have here. And that's really it. That's all we need to do to create this. But now we want to be able to actually add something. So what can we add as a picture? So we can go into Texture 2D, which is where all the images are stored, and this only has all the images required for this template to work. Everything else has been left out. So looking through, we've got a couple different things, mostly just like sprites and animations used for things. And I don't know. Let's just add this. This is a decal, I guess. So we're going to take this image, and we are going to go to Tools. We're going to want to go to Create Brush or Tile Set. And that's going to pop up a new window. And from there, we're going to want to go into Tile Set. We're going to want to find this, drag it in here. Fantastic. Each tile is 32 by 32. That seems okay. The rest of this can just sort of stay as it is. And we're going to hit create. Oh, I forgot to add a name. Time Shard Decal. That's just what I want to call it. And again, you'd repeat this with any other image. And if you want to add images here, this is an actual folder inside your project that you can just drag any PNG into and it'll just work. So that's how you create custom tile sets. So we're going to want to go create here to create a brush from our tile set now. So we're going to call it, once again, time shard decal. And it might be a good idea to put these on a sprite sheet. So you use the sprite sheet to add one tile set with all of your tiles in it, and then create brushes from that sprite sheet of all your different things. But here we're just using one sprite for the whole tile set and for the brush. So all these settings look to be good. It's not super important. Layer is also not super important, so we're just going to leave that as it is. And category, this is for your benefit. So if you want to sort brushes into categories, we're going to put it in background, I suppose, since that's what it's for. And a tag is also not needed. So now we're just going to hit create brushes, and it's going to create our brush. We can close this designer window, or we can drag it over here since we'll probably be using it at some point. And there it is, Time Shard Decal. It's part of its own tile set, so it gets its own section. And what you can also do is if you just go into all the brushes with everything here, you can sort by background, and it'll give these Mario things, which are already included, and the Time Shard Decal. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to go back into the scene. We are going to take our props layer and expand that so that it fills everything, once again, since we've just set it to be way too small. And we're going to put beautiful time shards. Fantastic, lovely, wondrous. Time shards. Time shards. And that looks like enough time shards to me. So now let's go check it out in game. Alright, now that we're in our level, we can go and see whether our decorations showed up. And you're going to notice that there's nothing here right away, but that's just because we're in 16-bit, or 8-bit. Once you go to 16-bit, they should appear. And look at how glorious they are. This is peak modding, right here. Peak modding. Alright, so that's all for this tutorial. In the next one, I'll probably cover extracting stuff from the base game to use in your custom levels. And that'll be a slightly more advanced topic. So come on down to the Discord if you have any questions in the meantime, or if you'd rather I cover something else. Yeah, that's it. Bye.